Sketchup modeling tip to flipping objects. The first way is to right-click, flip along, and choose an axis. This follows the axis of the component, such as components red. Right-click, flip along, components green. Right-click, flip along, components blue or the Z-axis. If you have installed the shortcuts.dat from Volume 2, my shortcuts are just Alt-QWE, ASD or ZXC, depending if it's a component, a group, or an exploded drawing in the model. For example, if I press Alt-Q, it locks to the blue, Alt-W locks horizontally, Alt-E from left to right. Another way to do this is to lock by rotation. Let's say we click the table, press Q to rotate, click 1, click second, and when you try to rotate it's free flowing. So what you could do is press an arrow. If I press the right arrow, it just locks on left and right. If I press the down arrow, nothing happens. If I press the left arrow, it locks from longitudinal. Let's try to do it with this. Click 1, left arrow, right arrow. So it tries to mirror it based on the vertex, or what you call this, pivot. The case is not true when you try to click on two different things. If I press Alt-Q, Alt-W or Alt-E, nothing happens. So press Alt-Z, X, and C for more than two groups or components. In cases such as this couch, which is not actually parallel to any of the axes, see, this is the green axis, and I try to flip it over, it flips along its own component's axis. If you right-click the component and click on Change Axis, you could see that the component has its own direction facing from inside the component. Blue, green. That's why sometimes when we model roofs, and we tilt them, you could stretch them along its own axis. However, if we use this method to tilt them, it doesn't scale along its own axis, but the axis of the world, or the model. So in cases where this happens, and it wants to be a component with different axes, you can make it a component and change the axis, relocate it. So the next time, it goes on a new axis and does not follow the world axis. However, in cases like this, if I try to flip them along a certain axis, it just goes along its own. In this case, I just draw an extra line, downwards or upwards, select them both, and try to flip them. This time it is following the world or the model's axis, because this drawing's axis is more stringent than the component. It doesn't do anything, so I have to click. Now it locks. This is for mirroring. Okay? So, Alt-QWE, you can set that in the shortcut preferences. Where is it? Edit, Item, Flip Along, Component. let's say component. Okay, I don't know where to find it, but I installed it straight from the 2019 shortcuts, so that should be there. So even without right-clicking and pressing flip along to check on which color the axes are, you can just select. Alt QW isn't working here for multiple objects. Alt ASD not as well, so it's definitely Alt Z, X, and C. But if I group them as one, letter G for group, it becomes Alt A, S, and D. So that's how to model quicker without having to keep on right-clicking. It saves you like 5 seconds of your time. Multiply that by how many clicks you do when you model, and it's really a lot faster. For example, just trying to look around, press the letter L instead of having to rotate every now and then and makes everyone dizzy. So L. Same is true for the field of view. Ctrl Shift F. There. And if you want to speed up some modeling, you can turn off the textures by going to Views and Shaded. Always remember I'm using thin lines by turning off the View Edge Style Profiles. Shortcut is F6. Why? Because if you turn on the profiles, it gets laggy. See? The outlines are thicker, but it gets laggy. But when you turn them off, there. So this is how it looks like without edges. So even without rendering, you could visualize by just turning on the shadow and manipulating the light. Cool. Show. There. And if I turn on the section cuts, these all belong to group 2, which is the second floor. So I go front elevation, parallel projection, go from left to right, get everything in the box, even that light, except that, press G to group, press number 2 to hide. This belongs to group 3, group 2. There. Now I can continue modeling the first floor without being affected by the other floors. 3 for third floor. Ceiling, this belongs to 1C, which is first floor ceiling. Why did I place a ceiling layer? Because for example, we're working on the first floor and the ceiling is on, it will be hard to model. See, like you have to keep H to hide and then Shift H to unhide, or to move it so you could model again, or to use the section cut, but then you can't model properly. So in my first layer, I turn off the ceiling and only use it when it's time to visualize the ceiling by going to its own layer 1C, which actually goes to the bottom view. So I could edit the ceiling from below. And then to 2C. So it's like a form of reflected ceiling plan, but it's just a section cut. Now if you don't want to use section cuts, let's say you want to visualize the first floor without cutting the, let's say this kind of cabinet is part of the section cut, that's why it turns black. What you could do is go to the front elevation, turn on camera, use the position camera tool, and in any perpendicular to the ground object, just click and drag down to the blue axis so the camera is actually looking from the top. Now from the height that you clicked on, it creates a kind of cut, but not necessarily a section cut. But it's still in plan view. Okay, again, front view, Shift F. I want to start the camera plane from here below the door jamb. Let it face downward. There, it creates a kind of cut, but without the section plane or the section cut outline. Compare that to using a section cut, which actually looks like this, where you can change the color of the section fill. Another tip in speeding up your model: press B, hold Alt, click on the material, and go to your materials tray and see the texture. Maximum texture of SketchUp is 1024 if you use the OpenGL. Okay, if you're running on GPU, use fast feedback, yes. Use maximum texture size. No, this is usually on 4 times, but I just use mine on 2x. What does this mean? Anti-aliasing is like something like this. Each line that you see is like composed of a pixel. So if you're making a line, it actually looks like this, 15x, like that. When you zoom in so much, it's per pixel. So that's why when you say 1080 pixels, that's 1080 width, and you want to anti-alias it twice, it tries to connect, this is my understanding, it tries to connect another pixel virtually that's not really there, just to make the line look sharper, like that. And if you say like, maybe that's, I don't know if that's twice or once, and if you say like 4 times, plus it keeps on adding and adding and adding to fool the mind or to fool the eye that your line is actually smooth. So of course, the higher the anti-alias, I think the more laggy it might get. So I only used 2. The 0 felt just weird, that's why. That's why you see it looks like it's not a straight line, but it's just the anti-alias. Okay, there you go, I guess. You could also fix your texture so you don't have to keep modeling, let's say, all the tiles. You could actually fix this so that when you are constructing, you could actually tell them just to follow the layout. You want it to start from the left, then go here to the edit material and put the dimension, if it's a 60 by 60, 30 by 60, as long as the image is exactly 1 tile. It's showing an experiment. Okay, what else? That's it. Maybe you could leave some comments or questions or dislikes. Bye bye.